Hey there, friends, and welcome back to another 3-Minute Thoughts. My name is Derek, and in the next 3 minutes, we're going to take a look at 2 Corinthians chapters 10 through 13. As the church of Corinth reached this final section of Paul's letter, the tone shifts pretty drastically. These chapters feel less like a sermon and more like a spiritual intervention. Paul is dealing directly with the super apostles, those false teachers who had swagger, polish, and charisma, and who were undermining Paul's ministry. If the early church listened with tension in a room, that's exactly how Paul would have intended this one to happen. Chapter 10 opens with Paul defending the way he ministers. The critics said he was bold in letters but unimpressive in person. Corinth loved strong personalities, flashy leadership, and rhetoric that filled a room. Paul reminded them that their categories are all wrong. The weapons of Christian ministry are not worldly tools, power, manipulation, and influence, but rather they're godly tools of truth, humility, and divine strength. Paul's authority isn't self-made, it's given by Christ for their good, not for his ego. Chapter 11 is where Paul does something unusual. He engages in foolish boasting. He hates boasting, but he uses it ironically to expose the emptiness of his opponent's claims. These super apostles, air quotes there, brag about credentials. Paul says, okay, fine, let's compare resumes. And then he lists not his achievements, but his sufferings, shipwrecks, beatings, imprisonments, hunger, sleepless nights. In Corinth, that didn't look like strength, yet Paul insists it shows the real mark of an apostle, self-giving love and endurance for the sake of Christ. He even mentions the thorn in the flesh, a persistent weakness that God allowed so Paul wouldn't become proud. The early church would have heard this as a surprisingly pastoral truth. God's power shines most brightly through weakness, not through performance. Chapter 12 includes Paul's retelling of a heavenly vision, something he almost never talks about. Again, he shares it not to elevate himself, but to show that even after such an encounter, God kept him humble. Corinth prized spiritual experiences, but Paul wants them to understand the point. It's grace, not experiences, that defines a disciple. Then he warns them he's coming back to Corinth, and when he does, he doesn't want to find division, impurity, or rebellion. Finally, chapter 13 ends with a call to self-examination. Test yourselves to see whether you are in the faith, not meaning they must doubt everything, but that their lives should reflect Christ's transforming power. Paul isn't trying to defend his reputation. He's trying to restore their spiritual health. His authority exists to build them up, not tear them down. In these chapters, Paul gives the early church and us a reminder that Christian leadership doesn't look like worldly strength. It looks more like godly service. Be well, friends.